It's waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford, who isn't bothered that Dwayne Haskins has bought himself a new car. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Couldn't care less. His money, he can do what he wants with it, as long as it's, not illegal.
It's not a red flag, then, as proposed by someone who I assume likes one colour of a person's skin more than another.
It's whatever the adjective you wish to attach to the person like this. I'll attach another one. They're an idiot. Whatever their opinion, whatever their political, racial, ethical leanings are, they're a dickhead.
Misguided opinion. And that's enough to be said on that, Neil. What this week will bring us, though, is a chat with a legend, a chat with a Super Bowl champion, a chat with a man who loves a wine. That's Mr. Dick Vermeil, Coach Vermeil to you and us, one of the greatest out there. And we're going to talk to him later in the show, talking about, have you ever been over-prepared, Coach? What do you think of Carson Wentz? And how about that Patrick Mahomes guy?
Coach had opinions.
Coach had opinions. Me and Neil are also going to look at early odds for the NFL this year and give you where we will be putting our fake money. Let's be clear on this. We don't bet on these things because we have no money. But if we had money, this is what we'd be doing. And then obviously we've got a couple of classic weird worlds straight off the bat, Neil.
Excellent. Well, let's do this.
It's a busy show. We're going to start with, our show is busier than schools in France. And why that is they've had to enroll 15 sheep at a French primary school to boost pupil numbers. You ready? This is classic journalism right now. Get on to, there's puns all over the place. You ready? Their grasp of grammar may be woolly, and they may confuse holding a pen with sleeping in one. All the same, some 15 sheep have been enrolled at a primary school as part of an unusual drive to save classes threatened with closure. Jules Ferret, in the French alpine town of Crête-en-Belladonna, population 4,000, has been told that it would have to scale back the number of classes because of a dwindling pupil numbers. Until this week, there were only 261 children at the school, but they have now been joined by a small flock of sheep to raise awareness over what parents and teachers warn is a threat to pupils' education.
Well, being invaded by sheep.
National education is unfortunately only about numbers, one of the parents said, and so now, with this surge in numbers, all is well.
So it's just, yeah.
I love a loophole as much as the next person, right? But we, surely the French government isn't going to fall for these sheep being humans.
Well, barring an innocent, a population increase, then what's going to happen? The problem is, it's as you say, it's like if you put down guidelines, you will find a smart ass who will apply them to the letter but not the spirit. Prime example: my youngest daughter wanted sweets a couple of weeks ago. I said, "You cannot have sweets until your plate is empty." She tipped her plate up and went, "Daddy, my plate is empty."
Yeah.
Daddy has to now juggle being absolutely furious at how hard-faced his daughter is between being proud of how hard-faced his daughter is.
What you've got to do is be very specific and clear, and it seems that the French government... So basically, the French government may have suggested more banging as the want of the French nation. However, the French decided they were just going to hire sheep to be pupils.
But why should sheep suffer from a lack of education if places are available? Oh, that's right, they're sheep.
I just read it today and I was just like, that's amazing. Like, yeah. I just like, in your face, French government, I'm gonna enroll some sheep, and the French government should be like, they don't count.
Yeah. Pierre, this is a silly plan. This is ludicrous. I'd love to know if it has worked.
You think that's ludicrous, Neil? Oh boy, have I got a doozy for you. We love a conspiracy theory, right?
Or do we?
Where are we from, Neil?
Liverpool.
Name famous things from Liverpool.
I was going to say Cilla Black, but she's from near Blackpool. Liverpool Football Club, Everton Football Club, and the Beatles.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the Beatles, but not as you know them. The bigger the name, the weirder the theory. Paul McCartney became a household name when he rose to prominence as part of the Beatles, did he? Thanks. In the 1960s, this is Rolling Stone, by the way. And his star power has held steady ever since the band broke up in 1970. Not sure it's held steady. There's been a few dips. We all heard the prog song. Yeah.
Plus, if you're reading Rolling Stone, you know the friggin' Beatles are, surely.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I love about these articles. They're basically just, you don't know who the Beatles are, so I'm going to tell you about it while reading this music magazine.
Yeah.
But anyway, but some conspiracy theorists believe that the Paul we know and love today is not Paul at all, but Fall or faux Paul McCartney. According to a long-standing theory, yes, ladies and gents, that means it hasn't been 10 seconds. The real Paul McCartney isn't a septuagenarian you see still tearing up stages. He actually died in the early hours of November the 9th, 1966, after his car skidded off an icy road and crashed into a pole. Conspiracy theorists claim that John Lennon, George Harrison and Ringo Starr worried about how the death might impact the Beatles' huge commercial success, so they covered up his death by replacing it with a lookalike called Billy Shears, who, for those who aren't aware, is the introduction to Little Help from My Friends from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, who looked, acted and even sounded the part. Extreme theorists have pointed out discrepancies in older photos and Paul to more recent photos, claiming that details like chin shape or the placement of his ears are dead giveaways. Ladies and gentlemen, just men have plastic surgery too. Men are also vain, and Paul McCartney is a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, who's say not struggling for money, wants to preserve his looks. This is utter bollocks. It's not it is not an unusual phenomenon though. This person has died and been replaced. It's said about Bob Dylan for a long time. Now, don't be wrong. There is a distinct difference between Dylan's voice from up to a certain point and then after. It is different, yeah, but he smoked and drank and probably took copious amounts of drugs. The most recent example of this one, though, is Avril Lavigne, who apparently died in 2013, and this Avril Lavigne is not her. Who cares?
That's like that. That's what people must think. You know, when you see that, like Renée Zellweger,
yeah,
like because she totally changed her face, right? And now she doesn't look like Renée Zellweger anymore. Do you think people just think that that was just weird, and she's actually dead? I love the idea that the real Paul McCartney wrote Yesterday and fake Paul McCartney wrote Let It Be. Or are we just saying that Billy Shears didn't write any of the songs and technically Lennon wrote them all, but then gave fake Paul, half the rights to every single song he ever wrote?
It might explain why someone could write Hey Jude, and then that same person could write Sea Moon.
Tell you, Dutton, the weird world gets weirder. If you want to share your weird world stories with us, tweet them to us at waxing_lyrical or individually. Neil is at ndutton13 and I am at Mainzy7. Neil, let's drift over to the world that we understand a little better than fake musical conspiracy theories, and that's the NFL. It's only May, but the NFL futures bets are already out. So I thought, early thoughts based on what we know so far, where would you be putting your money on right now? Obviously, because odds are going to change one way or another, and this might be a good time to do it. So what I've done, Waxes, is I've given Neil an imaginary $1 million to make 5 bets. the best thing we're going to find out on this now is how good Neil is at maths. Hopefully better than my son is at his reading test and SATs that he did today, where he left most of the answers out. So Neil, you've got 5 bets, I've got 5 bets, you've got $1 million. I want you to tell me the money, the bet, and why. And then I will go, then you will go, then I will go. It's pretty straightforward. We'll probably get it wrong. You go first, Neil. Where's your first bet going?
Okay. Well, in the interest of of keeping this party moving, I've gone 5 bets of $200,000 each.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I'm not going big, not going bold. My first bet is I will be taking the under on the Packers win total of 9.5 at 5-6.
Why is that, Neil?
The Packers seem to be making a little cottage industry of stories of confusion, mismanagement, and bizarre happenings. There was obviously the story about the Rodgers-McCarthy feud. Now there's a story come out this week that shows the power structure within the Packers is strange. Demarcation lines do not seem to exist. People thought they were applying for one job and actually got given another. And added to this, the fact that they have, a rather unheralded first year head coach. I just think the Packers, I have a sneaking suspicion, the Packers are not going to be terribly good in 2019.
Is there also a fear that Aaron Rodgers died in a massive ball of flames fired from a dragon on Sunday night?
And he'll actually be replaced by Karen Bodgers or someone in this coming season.
Yeah. Exactly right, exactly. So Neil taking what can only be described as the former Mainzy position of slagging off the Green Bay Packers. Interesting. I've got $100,000, Neil, on my next bet. I was on a podcast a few months ago, Who Day, with the great guys there, and there was about 7 of us, and we did a auction, and it was great, and I was comfortably the least qualified. I think I did it because you were busy, which is fine.
Don't big yourself up. I turned it down.
And okay, you said you were busy, right? Turned it down, busy. They're the same thing. And
I really did, by the way.
One of the guys, Zach Moore, said an interesting thing to me, which is stuck in my head. And he was like, I know running backs don't matter, but what happens if running backs are actually secretly wide receivers? And I was like, that's weird. Like, and then I looked at like stats like Saquon Barkley catching it 17 times a game, and I thought, what if I had fake £100,000 and bet at 125 to 1 that Saquon Barkley would have the most receiving yards in the NFL next year?
Then you'd be down £100,000.
I would, but what a win! What a win! And why I do this? I'm not doing it. I'm doing it obviously for jokes and for comic effect. But it's worth thinking that the New York Football Giants are rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
Their best wide receiver now plays for the Cleveland Browns. Last season they threw it 1,000,000 times to Saquon Barkley. I expect them to do it again. He got 800 receiving yards last year, maybe 780, I think. He would need to get to 1,300 for a chance. I think he's got a chance of getting over 1,000 quite comfortably. So, I think he'd be in the top 10.
It's an interesting one. As you say, at those odds, why not? Not our money.
Exactly. Neil, what's your second flutter?
My second flutter is in keeping with NFC running backs. Now, this is the closest thing to a sure thing that I've actually bet on, and that is I am going 13-5 for Ezekiel Elliott to lead the NFL in rushing yards, as I believe he's done it twice in 3 years. Ezekiel Elliott leads the NFL in rushing attempts and yards since he came into the league. And even though the emergence of Amari Cooper last year actually opened up Elliott's pass-catching prowess, we still know he's still one of the best running backs around. And we know that they're going to lean on the run, even with Cooper and whatnot. So 13-5, I think it's a nice flutter. I'm going to say 200,000 on Zeke, assuming he doesn't get suspended.
Assuming he doesn't get suspended. Excellent caveat at the end there, Neil. My second one is £250,000 on the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South at 6-5. So I put money on and they give me more money back if they win. And one of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, and the Houston Texans are the other three teams they're fighting against. Which one's got the best quarterback? That'd be Andrew Luck, right?
And probably, I would take him, ahead of the other three. By a long distance, even from Deshaun Watson, but, yeah.
Well, why I would is because I know I nearly said something silly about injuries because Andrew Luck was out for 18 months, but, Houston Texans seem to continually try and get Deshaun Jackson killed. So I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. I think they, at the moment, I'm not Chris Westling in love with the Indianapolis Colts. However, I think they win that division.
You're sucking the Kool-Aid through a straw, whereas Wes is taking it by the gallon.
Yeah, Wes is doing a dentist chair, right, in Magaluf. That's how much he loves them. He probably doesn't even know where Magaluf is. But yeah, that's what he's doing. I don't think they do dentist chairs in Tybee Island, so let's say he's doing a dentist chair in Magaluf.
At 4-1 to lead the NFL in passing yards, Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, obviously, passing yards, he's going to be up around 4,000, maybe a bit higher. He was second in touchdown passes last year with 39. Most years that would lead the NFL. But obviously, Patrick Mahomes had his season. Andrew Luck, just look what happens if you protect him. He's very, very good. He's got T.Y. Hilton. He's got Eric Ebron is obviously ready for some huge touchdown regression. Got Jack Doyle coming back. They've got Devin Funchess, and they have Paris Campbell, who I think is looks sneaky good. And in fact, I'll lead straight into it as while I'm here. I've got Paris Campbell at 25-1 to be Offensive Rookie of the Year because he plays with Andrew Luck.
Mainzy's dynasty fantasy team endorses this message as he was my second pick, I think, or third pick. I can't remember. It got tremendously complicated, and I was welling over my head. But I got Paris Campbell, so I was made up. Even the great James Dixon DM'd me on the side and said, "Good pick." So you're doing well at that point. He wasn't asking me to trade for the 47th time that day.
Loves a trade, Dixon.
Let's keep the Colts flowing, Neil. 150k. They're going to win the division, so at 10-13, why would they not do over 9.5? It seems if they're going to win the division, they're probably going to be 10-6, 11-5. So therefore, may as well double up. And there's 400k of my cash on the Colts. Large. Yeah. So your next one, I guess, Neil, was Paris Campbell, 25-1 Offensive Rookie of the Year. My fourth one is also Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going the other way on this. I'm not overthinking the room. I'm Cliff Kingsbury. I've watched that offense. If it's half as good and Kyler Murray's half as good, he's a quarterback and he wins Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Like that. There's a load of people now saying, "Go on, Mainz, you want to do it." I don't, because if you don't know me very well, I don't talk about my team. I don't bet on my team. I don't pick my team in fantasy games of any sport. Therefore, the obvious pick is Kyler Murray at 2-1, 250k.
Kyler Murray was one of the candidates I looked at in my article, looking at 5 candidates to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I wrote for number 5 a few weeks ago.
Final one, Neil. Who have you got?
Devontae Adams to lead the NFL in receiving yards, 16-1. Devontae Adams, for some reason, still seems to be underrated, even though he's very, very good, very, very productive, and is the only wide receiver with established chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. So we know what Rodgers is doing in the past. If he doesn't like what he's going to do, he's going to draw the play for himself and throw to the people he trusts. That's Devontae Adams.
Like it, Neil. My last one, little bit of a shot in the dark, not as big as the last one. You went with Ezekiel Elliott for rushing yards. Makes sense. I've gone for Lev Bell at 12-1. I couldn't believe he's only 27. I heard that on ATN. I was like, what? Isn't he like 50? But anyway, nice year off. Not really nice for his bank balance, but will help his legs. He's very jetsy. I can see him getting a lot of touches, like a lot of touches. And yeah, it helps them protect Sam Darnold as well. Don't want him to throw too much, even second year. So Lev Bell, 12-1, Neil.
Adam Gase scares the hell out of me for that offense because his numbers in terms of plays per game and pace of play without Peyton Manning is damn near funereal. So I fear for Darnold, I fear for Bell, I fear for Robbie Anderson, I fear for Chris Herndon. I fear that the Jets think they have solved their problems, whereas they've actually fallen for the politician's fallacy of we must do something, this is something, therefore we must do it. We must hire an offensive coach. Here's an offensive coach. We must hire him. He's not a very good one.
Yeah, that's it. The issue with him being the offensive coach is the lack of ability of being an offensive coach. That's a problem.
Yeah. Can be a slight hiccup.
Let's be honest. The way things are going, New York radio will be talking about how the Yankees are getting on. Yankees are getting on 3 months before spring training because Jets and Giants high propensity to suck.
Yeah, they play for the Snoopy Bowl in preseason. It'll be the toilet bowl. Let's be honest.
Hooray! Neil, quickly walk me through your 5 bets that you would do this year.
My 5 bets. I say I'm taking the under on the Green Bay Packers win total of 9.5. I am banking on Ezekiel Elliott to lead the NFL in rushing, Andrew Luck to lead the NFL in passing, Paris Campbell to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Devontae Adams to lead the NFL in receiving yards.
I have done Saquon Barkley most receiving yards, the Colts to win the AFC South, the Colts to get over 9.5, Kyler Murray to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Lev Bell to get the most rushing yards in the NFL next year. Neil, we're going to close the show with Coach Vermeil, but before we do that, is there anything you want everybody to read from yourself this week?
Yes, for number 5, I have an article out looking at some MVP candidates. The odds have come out for that award. I've gone for 2 front runners, 2 value picks, and 1 player whose current odds I'm not touching. That's, over on number 5. And for RotoViz, I've had a look at quarterbacks in their contract season in 2019 and what they could bring to your fantasy roster. I say 4. Here's a spoiler. One of them's Eli Manning, and I don't say an awful lot.
Neil, it's now our privilege and your great tenacity and hard work that we get to present Coach Vermeil. He's going to talk to us about over preparation. Is it possible? And a couple of quarterbacks you may have heard of. Let's get over to Coach Vermeil now. And joining us now on Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts, it's a great pleasure to speak to the absolutely magnificent Coach Dick Vermeil, Super Bowl winning coach of the St. Louis Rams and former Eagles and Chiefs head coach, along with head coach of the UCLA Bruins. Coach Vermeil, how are we this evening?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are things with you?
Very good, thank you. We will get straight on. We were reading this week that Sean McVays claimed he was overprepared ahead of the Rams Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. In your experiences, was that extra week to prepare for such a big game something of a blessing or a curse?
Oh, I think it's a necessity, not necessarily a blessing. I know I've been to 2 Super Bowls, one with a 2-week bye, and so preparation week, and one with only 1 week. And I prefer the 2 weeks regardless. It's just better. I mean, it's just better in every way for the coaches and the team and the community.
Do you understand why he thinks he was over-prepared, Coach? Do you just think he started to think about what went wrong and he's almost overthought what he was trying to do instead of just sticking to a logical game plan?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't talked to him about it, and I think we all try to define why we didn't play like we thought we would, and over-prepared is better than saying I wasn't prepared well enough. Okay?
Very true.
I know Sean McVays well enough to know his team was extremely well prepared to play well, and they didn't for one reason or another. Not having the running back 100% healthy, I think, made a difference. And I just think the defense played so well. They had the opportunity to win a big game, and the offense that had been good all year did not play well. Now, to define why is really difficult to do, But normally a fine head coach will take the blame himself. And he said, I over-prepared, so I buy into it. I guess that's what he believes, and if he believes that, then I back him on it.
And obviously, if you're going to have preparation issues, whether it's over-prepared or under-prepared, the one coach you don't probably want to be going against is Bill Belichick, as he's going to be, he's been there, done that. He knows all the tricks of the trade.
No question. There's 22 players on the field at a time, and it's a great chess game, and no one plays that game better than Belichick. No one has more experience than Belichick. So, it's tough, especially for a rookie coach. But the Rams were good enough to beat him on that day. They didn't. If they played 3 games, maybe they beat him once, maybe they beat him twice. But you don't get that opportunity in a Super Bowl.
Coach, you said recently, moving from one of your former teams to another one, you said recently that you'd expect at the end of his career Carson Wentz to be in the contention for the Hall of Fame. What is it that makes him so special in your eyes? I mean, obviously, 2017, before he got injured, he was probably the MVP of the league. Last year, he was a bit disjointed for injury concerns. What is it about him that makes him so special, in your opinion?
Well, first, you can't play as well as he did one year and not have the talent to continually to do it. What many times dissipates around him is talent around him. Game plans, preparation aren't as good or weren't as good. But a lot of schedule a little bit tougher, a little bit better. But if you have the talent to play at the level that he played at 2017, then in 2018, my gosh, in 2018, he played 11 games, 7 games. He had a plus 100 quarterback efficiency rating. 6 times he threw better than 69% complete. You can't ask a quarterback to do much more than that.
I think. Do you expect him to bounce back then this year, Coach? Do you expect the Eagles to be really in contention for Super Bowl again?
Oh, I do. And I think we're talking about Carson Wentz being a Hall of Fame player way too soon. I think there's a tendency with the media to talk about Hall of Fame performances way prematurely. And I think just let this guy mature into what he's going to be. I think eventually, 3-4 years down the road, if he stays healthy, we might be able to start talking about that. But right now, he's a young quarterback. He's a young quarterback trying to be what he has the ability to be, what he's demonstrated he has the ability to be. Now he just has to get it done on a consistent basis.
Because obviously he's had already, once the season finished, obviously he was injured. Nick Foles took over, as was his want. He's no longer there now. Then there was a bit of negative criticism regarding Carson Wentz from, sources within the locker room. And then most Eagles players came out straight away, defending Wentz. But then Wentz owned it to an extent, kind of saying, no, I'm not perfect, but I will learn. So obviously that's signs of, obviously you can have all the talent in the world, but if it's not up there and you don't understand the game, it can be for nothing, can it?
Well, I think this, whenever somebody comes in and plays extremely well at your position and they win big games like they did with Nick Foles, there's going to be some media hype, and there's going to be positives and negatives, and there's going to be second guessing, and there's going to be a lot of wondering. I wonder if Nick Foles innately is a better player for the future. Now, all that occurs when someone comes in and plays as well as Nick Foles did. But I think if you go back and evaluate properly, as a coaching staff would, evaluate what Carson Wentz had already done and proved he could do, at no time did Nick Foles ever do that early in his career. You'd have to say that Carson Wentz is the guy, and it was smart to declare early enough and send Nick Foles away give him an opportunity to do it again in Jacksonville and let Carson Wentz be the man. Now you just hope he doesn't get hurt.
If we move from one extraordinary young quarterback to another, the MVP last year, Patrick Mahomes, had an incredible first season as a starter in 2018. I'm interested, Coach. What would you have given to have someone? You had some amazing quarterbacks while being a head coach, but someone of that level of talent and difference. Would you have made him? Would you have changed your system to try and fit into some of the amazing skill set that Patrick Mahomes has?
No question. You just have to. You just have to do that. Patrick Mahomes is a phenom. Okay, I've coached 3 NFL teams, and I ended up with a Pro Bowl quarterback on all 3 teams. One of them is already in the Hall of Fame. So I've always had good quarterbacks, and I'm very fortunate because many times we found them in the unusual ways. But Patrick Mahomes is so obvious that you have to plan far more things to do because he is unlimited in the things that he can do. So it allows a coach to expand his offensive thinking. It allows him to, or forces him to make sure that he surrounds him with the kind of people on the field that will help him do what he has the talent to do. And it's a wonderful challenge.
I mean, one thing that we have seen is, especially over the course of the time that I've been watching the NFL, Andy Reid is obviously. I still think Andy Reid is vastly underrated as an offensive play caller and play designer. But the way he seemed to change his own spot, as it were, because obviously they had Alex Smith for a long time, and they knew what Alex Smith's limitations were, so they were successful with him. But then to bring in Patrick Mahomes and start doing things that he could do well, just shows you that when a coach and a quarterback marriage, comes together perfectly, much like yourself, with Kurt Warner back in the day, when it comes together, it can be absolutely breathtaking to watch.
No question. No question. If it isn't a mirage, if he isn't a mirage, he's destined to be one of the finest that ever played. But a lot of things have to happen. He has to stay healthy. They have to keep surrounding him with the talented players that will allow him to be what he is. And they have to prevent him from getting a big head. Yeah.
That's what I have to do to Paul, to be honest, when when we're on this show.
Yeah. Pardon?
Sorry, Coach, just when we last spoke, one of the topics we talked about was how annoying it was to me, and it emerged to yourself, that someone like Don Coryell was not in the Hall of Fame. That was 3 years ago. He still isn't. I'm still annoyed. But another person with whom you're associated with, who seems to get slept on and still at the moment is outside the Hall of Fame, is Isaac Bruce. Now, when people bring up great wide receivers of the last 20, 30 years, his name never seems to get mentioned. I mean, obviously you worked with him. You know how great he was. Should he be in the Hall of Fame, in your opinion?
Oh, Isaac Bruce will be in the Hall of Fame. He's just going to have to be patient. He will end up in the Hall of Fame. He's been in the finals twice now. He will be in the Hall of Fame. In regard to Don Coryell, I don't know. I think he deserves it. I think Dan Reeves deserves it. I think Mike Holmgren deserves it. And it's just the Hall of Fame process for coaches has almost deteriorated to the point that it isn't. They aren't treated with the same respect that other people in the league and other player positions in the league. They aren't given the same respect.
It's difficult for Bruce because he's surrounded by a lot of amazingly talented wide receivers trying to get into the Hall of Fame at the same time. I assume that's why you believe that he isn't in yet. It's just a case of when rather than if.
Yeah. There were so many good ones sitting in the wings there to get in. Are they more deserving than Isaac Bruce? Maybe not. Or maybe they are, but I think the whole thing is just being patient. The whole thing is just being patient.
Go Go on, Neil.
Sorry, it's just obviously when you're around players and coaches, or former players and coaches, being in the Hall of Fame obviously is a great achievement. How important is it, do you think, for them to be first ballot, or is that just something that the media like to get hold of?
Will you repeat that question again?
Yeah, sorry, Coach. I was just saying, it's something that when we talk about people being, Hall of Famers, another tag that gets attached is first ballot Hall of Famers. Do actual players care about the first ballot bit, or is that just something that fans and the media get hold of and like to argue about?
I think there are obvious players that think about going in on the first ballot, that after their 5 years of sitting out and waiting. I think there are guys that know they are of that quality. I think the majority don't think about the first ballot the first year, but there are always a few that think that and deserve to think that way because they were so glaringly good.
Coach, thanks a lot for your time. We've got a final question. NFL coaching and commentating seem to us ridiculously intense professions. You're now in the wine growing business, which seems to demand much more patience. Is that difference something that appealed to you?
Well, the wine business is a tougher competition. There's only 32 NFL teams. There are over 500 wineries in the Napa Valley alone where I make our wines, or where I'm involved with, that make good wines, make great wines. We only make 2,500 cases a year, so we can't make good wine and get by. We have to make great wine because we don't have volume. We emphasize quality, and we try to keep the price within the reach of the people that like quality wine. But it is a struggle, okay? It is a struggle.
I suppose it's one of those things, that you just say you don't think about, because obviously, speaking as a ruffian, I don't drink that much wine. I don't know that much about it. I just, I hear from very intelligent people that the best wine in the world, and I'm not just trying to curry favour with you because you're on with us, Coach, is from the Napa Valley. But I didn't realise it was that intense. I didn't realise there was that much competition there.
Well, I think some of the great wines in the world are made in the Napa Valley. Are they better than the great wines of France? That's debatable. That's very debatable. But they're very competitive. Let's put it that way.
Well, fantastic, Coach. We thank you, and we get everyone to try that wine from Coach Vermeil.
Right,
thank you for your time, and we'll speak to you again soon, hopefully.
Always nice to visit with you guys. Good luck.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.